To everyone that's been doubting me, do you doubt me now? Do you doubt me now that Kamala Harris has a 51% chance to secure the Democratic nomination? Do you doubt me now that Biden has a 69% chance to drop out of this race? Do you doubt me now that there are 14 congressional Democrats, even one senator, that says Biden should drop out? Do you doubt me now that even George Clooney, Democrat megadonor and star in Hollywood, says that Biden should drop out? I didn't think so. And let's see who will win between Harris and Donald Trump, given the hypothetical election scenario, which I believe won't be hypothetical very soon, because Biden, mark my words, will drop out of this race. Alright, so let's get to it. There has been polling conducted by Biden's internal camp to see if Harris would be a better candidate than him. And this is to see if Biden should stay in the race. Essentially, the question Biden is facing is, will he stand the best shot at defeating Donald Trump? Because that's the Democratic Party's whole goal, to defeat Donald Trump. And Biden, he says he thinks he has the best shot at doing so. So for that reason, he conducted some polls and saw if Harris would stand a better chance than him at defeating Donald Trump. There's been a YouGov poll that says that Democrats would actually prefer Biden over Harris as the nominee, and 21% weren't sure. And for that reason, there have been other potential nominees being floated because people view that these governors will have a better chance than Kamala Harris, which I agree with for the most part. Additionally, Kamala Harris has a very bad disapproval rating, especially for a vice president. Vice presidents are typically not disapproved that much, with the exception being Dick Cheney. But Kamala Harris's net disapproval is really, really bad for a vice president. It's pretty similar to that of an unpopular president. But her disapproval has been getting better and better pretty slowly and steadily. On the other hand, Joe Biden's disapproval has skyrocketed ever since the debate. And that's because people view that he's not fit enough to be the president. And let me tell you something. Joe Biden will not get any more fit to be president as time goes on. When you get old to the point Joe Biden or Donald Trump is, there's no getting mentally better. There's only getting mentally worse. So anyone holding out hopes for Joe Biden will just be sorely disappointed down the line if Joe Biden's still president in 2 years when he can't string some words together. And honestly, I think it'll be kind of similar for Donald Trump. Donald Trump is on a similar trajectory as Joe Biden, except his is delayed a few years because he's a little bit younger than Biden. So honestly, this is just a PSA to elect younger presidents. But anyways, let's just continue with the prediction. So even though Harris is wildly disapproved, she'll still win in the West Coast. She's from California. She'll win in Oregon, she'll win in Washington, and she'll win in Hawaii. Those 4 states almost always go to the Democrats by large, very large margins, except since like 2000, but ever since then, Oregon has gone more and more to the Democrats, and that's because of the booming city of Portland, which votes almost entirely for Democrats. There are some cities, Portland, Philadelphia, DC, that votes 90+% for the Democratic Party, and that tends to make states the way they are. Pennsylvania and Georgia would not be swing states if Philadelphia and Atlanta didn't exist. Illinois would be a Republican state if Chicago didn't exist, etc. Cities tend to vote for Democrats, rural regions tend to vote for Republicans, and that's the way it is. But anyways, let's counteract Harris's safe states with some of Trump's. Montana, Idaho, Wyoming, Utah, and Alaska all go to Donald Trump. Same with North Dakota, South Dakota, Nebraska. Nebraska's first, Nebraska third, Kansas, and Oklahoma. So now Trump makes it to 43 to Harris's 78. And even though Trump picks up way more states, his states have less population, which leads to Harris having more electoral votes while having fewer states, because California is the biggest prize with its 54 electoral votes. But Trump doesn't stop there. He picks up Missouri, Arkansas, Louisiana, Mississippi, Tennessee, Kentucky, Indiana, Alabama, South Carolina, and West Virginia, picking up a net of 125 electoral votes from safe states alone. Harris also doesn't stop there, picking up Illinois, New York, Vermont, Connecticut, Delaware, Maryland, DC, Massachusetts, and Rhode Island, and that's about it, with the exception of Maine's 1st District. So Harris picks up more safe votes than Donald Trump. Some can argue Ohio, Florida, and Texas are safely going to Trump, but there's a reason they're not. They have a small chance of going to the Democrats, but that chance is not zero. That chance is probably something like 10 to 20%. And for that reason, they cannot be classified as safe states, especially when Colorado, New Mexico, and New Jersey are not safe states. So with that being said, let's go to some polling to see who will win this election. So a recent poll in Virginia has Harris and Trump tied, whereas Biden is leading Trump by +3. One thing that I think will happen, if Harris is the nominee, she'll get more name recognition, she'll get more endorsements, Biden will endorse her, Obama will endorse her, etc. And for that reason, I think she will poll slightly higher than she currently is. And for that reason, I think she does pick up Virginia as a tilt state, bringing herself to 180 electoral votes. However, she's down by 4 in the general election, whereas Biden is only down by 3. In this one poll, she's up by 2, whereas Trump's up by 1. But we should go by the polls that are including RFK Jr., etc., because those are more indicative of who will win. But it is interesting to see that Harris is beating Biden in at least one poll. But anyways, let's go to the rest of our swing states. It's looking pretty dire for Trump, so I'm going to give him some more electoral votes. Let's start with the state of Texas. Texas, Trump is leading Biden by about 10, and Biden's leading Harris by about 2, so Trump wins the state of Texas pretty safely. The reason I couldn't consider it a swing state originally is because Texas only went to Trump by about 5.6 in 2020, and Colorado and New Mexico both went to Biden by over 10 percentage points, so I couldn't count these as battlegrounds, but not Texas. And Texas also has had a strong leftward shift. It went to Trump by 9, then 5.6. If the same happens, then it'll go to Trump by about 3 or 2 in this next election, and obviously that can't be considered a safe state. So now that Trump is only down by 15, Ohio can bring him over the edge, and he can be defeating Harris if he takes home Ohio. And he does take home Ohio, leading Biden by about 10, and for that reason, I think he'll lead Harris by a similar margin, and he'll lead Harris 182 to 180 currently. But now let's go to some states that will probably go to Harris. Colorado and New Mexico, which went to Clinton by about 5 and 8.2 respectively, will probably go to Harris, but not by large margins, probably by more tilt margins. So for that reason, Harris is leading Trump by 7 electoral votes, but there are a lot of battleground states left. And let's next go to Florida. Florida is Trump's current home state. It might switch if he chooses Marco Rubio as his VP due to the Constitution, but regardless, Trump is leading by 5 or even 6. Against Harris, he'll lead by as little as 3 in the state of Florida, but that is still a lead nonetheless, and he wins Florida. If we compare Harris to Clinton, Trump beat Clinton in Florida by 1.2, which isn't that much, but Florida has had a rightward shift. A lot of it is due to immigration, and due to that, Florida will go to Donald Trump. Okay, so now let's go to Maine's 2nd District. Maine's 2nd District went to Trump in 2020, and Nebraska's 2nd went to Biden in 2020, so I think they'll go pretty similarly once again, but Nebraska's 2nd will be a tilt. I think it's possible Trump does win Nebraska's 2nd. But anyways, Trump is leading, but it's pretty narrow. So let's go to some states that can bring Harris over the edge. Starting with Pennsylvania, Philadelphia, a booming city, voted for Biden with about 90% back in 2020, but Pennsylvania as a whole is probably not going to Biden. One reason for this is fracking. Fracking is a contentious issue in Pennsylvania, and Trump aligns more with the average person on the fracking issue in Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania and West Virginia both have fracking. Trump wins West Virginia, and Pennsylvania, many oil drillers / workers align with Donald Trump, and for that reason, Trump wins the state of Pennsylvania despite Philadelphia's influence. But Harris is in dire straits. She needs states such as New Jersey to bring her over the line and defeat Donald Trump. However, even though Trump does lead in one poll against Biden, I don't think he would lead in the state of New Jersey. But New Jersey has been going more and more to the Republicans. As you can see in these Senate polls, it's only going to Andy Kim by about 6%. That's extremely close, especially for the state of New Jersey. And something funny is the incumbent only is getting 3%. But anyways, New Jersey will go to Harris, but similar margins with Colorado and New Mexico. And remember, New Jersey has always been a safe state for the Democrats, but this election is different. New Jersey has an unpopular incumbent senator. New Jersey ran the First Lady of New Jersey for the Senate seat. New Jersey wanted to have its governor and First Lady having 2 of the most respected offices in the entire state. But New Jersey voters said no to that, obviously. But anyways, the Democratic Party is very unpopular in New Jersey right now, and for that reason, it's going to be rather close. And now we get to Iowa. Iowa is definitely not a battleground state, but I just had to include it. Trump leads Harris by probably 10 or 11 in the state of Iowa. So now he's up 238 to 210 with the Midwest remaining. Harris needs to win the Midwest needs to win what they call the blue wall to even stand a chance at this election. Minnesota's her most likely bet, as it has a 71% chance of going to Biden according to 538. And Minnesota will probably go to Trump actually by about 1 to 2 percentage points. And that spells disaster for Harris. The rest of the Midwest for that reason will go to Donald Trump. Michigan has been steadily going towards the Democratic Party. One thing to note, Michigan used to be pretty Republican in earlier polls, then went more and more to the Democrats, whereas Pennsylvania used to be more Democrat towards the earlier polls, but now has been more and more Republican, which is interesting to me at least. But Michigan still goes to Trump, and the Midwest brings Trump over the line to 273 electoral votes. But the question is not if Trump will win, it's how much Trump will win by. And we'll next see with the state of North Carolina that went to Trump in 2020 and 2016. North Carolina's polls are pretty solid for Donald Trump. They have been getting a little less solid as time goes on. But despite governor polls being close and even leaning towards the Democrats, the presidency is not too close. It'll go to President Trump over Vice President Harris. Now we have 3 states remaining. I think Trump can reach the 300 margin at the very least. Let's see how high he can get. And let's go to Georgia. Georgia has, even though it went to Biden in 2020, as well as been promising for Democrats in the Senate, it is going to Donald Trump pretty safely in the past, and now it's narrowing up. But regardless, Trump does lead in the state of Georgia pretty consistently. And even the 538 forecast does have Trump leading 60 to 40% of the time. So Trump does reach 300 electoral votes. And you could see this is a disaster. This is really a disaster for Harris. So now we get to Nevada. It only offers 6 electoral votes, but Trump does lead in the state of Nevada as well. Even though the popular incumbent senator in Nevada is likely going to win, Donald Trump does lead in Nevada for the presidency. So now we get to Arizona. So Arizona also has similar polls to Nevada. And Trump's going to win in Arizona as well, probably by even a higher margin than he does in Nevada. 538 has Trump winning, etc. Trump is winning 322 to 210 currently, but Harris can make a slight comeback in the Northeast. The state of New Hampshire is going to Trump, actually. That is a surprise. It went to Biden pretty significantly in 2020, but in 2016, it barely went to Hillary Clinton. And it seems like it's going to Trump against Harris. And lastly, we get to Maine. Maine does not have many polls on the subject, but the polls that are there do have Trump leading in certain polls and then Biden leading in others. This poll includes RFK Jr. And RFK polls really highly in Maine because Maine has an independent spirit. There's an independent senator in Maine. Maine has elected independents. Maine has a Republican as a senator, Susan Collins, etc. And the 538 forecast has Maine going to Trump about 26% of the time. I think this probably more towards 40% against Harris. But regardless, Harris picks up Maine. Trump wins 326 to 212. Name me in the comments a candidate that can beat Trump, and I'll probably do a prediction on them. And thank you for watching. Make sure to like, subscribe, and comment for more.